is how this whole thing came to be. So many of you know that I've been in the career work world for 25 years, but I had a very significant career transition in about 2008. And I ended up spending significant time going through just some really, really hard times, actually times that actually brought me down to my knees. And I will get into that and I will share that story, just my hardest year ever career-wise. But that sent me into a really deep exploration and a really deep process that took me 5 years. And so I've been sitting here with all of this information about what I think it takes to really look at career and explore career, but I haven't created a format to share it. And so my goal for this session is to share it and to start getting out there and talking about it, because I know I've gotten so much feedback from last Friday. I know I'm not alone. I know there are other people that have felt the same way that I felt, and that can benefit from hearing this story and from getting just some guidelines for what do you do, how do you start the idea of transforming career. What I think is crazy, and my kids are actually in this place right now, is that when you go to college, you have to determine when you're 18 what you want to be when you grow up. I had absolutely no clue. And one of my career counselors said to me, there's jobs in technology. You should go into a technology career. And I was like, okay. There was no like making sure I was on strength, like nothing. It was just, there's jobs. And so I think a lot of us end up going down paths because it's work and we get paid to do that. And all of a sudden you wake up and you realize, oh my God, I'm still here. I'm still doing this same work in this same job. And I hit a wall. I hit a point where I was like, I actually cannot do this anymore. So we will get into that and talk about that too. So for those of you I have not met, my name is Tiffany Mattick, and I spent 25 years in the corporate environment. I started in technology, so I did what she said. I got my degree in technology and got a job in technology, and it worked for a while, and it allowed me to help raise this family. This is my son Gabe on the left. He's a sophomore at St. John's. And my daughter Annika on the right is a senior in high school, and so she's about to make her college choice. So all of this is really relevant to where I'm at in my life too with my kids. But I could not be more grateful for the career that I've had. I was a working mom. I had to be at daycare every day at 4:30, and so I've done a lot of the hard and challenging things about trying to be a professional and have a career, but at the same time raising a family. And I just recently, so I've been away from corporate now for a year, and I'm building my business, which is called There She Grows, which I'm primarily focused on leadership development, team building, and coaching. I do a little bit of speaking too, and then I have a couple other organizations that I partner with. So I have all these different lanes that I'm playing in and trying to figure out what I love the most. And so this idea of doing a webinar is super energizing for me and super fun. So we're not going to get into this a lot today, but when you think of the things that you want to work on, the reason I'm doing this right now, actually again, I did it on Friday, now I'm doing it again, is because I love to do it. It inspires me, it fuels me, it gives me energy, and I get to share and I get to help others. Really important to me. So that's part of the reason why I set this up, and it gives me a format to do that, to do something that I love. So that's me. I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota today, and on most days in that local area. So let's move on and let's talk about, before we dive in too far into career, I want to make sure that you guys have a full understanding of what engagement looks like at work. So there are 5 contributing factors that make you feel like you're engaged and make you feel like you're part of something at work. And I want you to think about, how do these connect for you, and how do you relate to these 5 things? So when it comes to engagement, employee engagement, people want to feel connected to others. So think about your work. Do you have a best friend at work, or people that you enjoy, people that you connect with? So the people at work, very important to allowing us to feel satisfied at work. Also, are you challenged? So are you given situations where you're actually pushing and really being challenged to do new things? Do I get to do what I'm good at every day? So am I using my strengths, my gifts, my talents? And we're going to talk about this one more. This is a big red flag for me. Are you using what you're best at? Do you get to show up and bring your gifts and talents to work? Am I contributing to something greater than myself? Am I on purpose? So people want to feel like they're helping others and that they're contributing to something bigger that matters. Another big engagement factor. And then, of course, am I learning and growing? None of us want to stay complacent and just kind of sit there. It's always good to have that challenge, that learning and growth environment, super important. So check in on those and think about your own engagement. So only 33% of people are actually engaged at work. And that's a fresh study. Those numbers have been pretty consistent, though. Not a lot of change since last year, but that's fresh from 2020 now. So where are you at? So I want you to go into the chat window and I want you to tell us, just check in. Where do you feel like maybe something here could be better? So go into the chat window and share with everyone, is there one of these that sticks out for you? Like, I'm actually missing this. Have a chat quick. Yeah, purpose and connection. Purpose is a big one. It's sometimes hard to find roles where we actually feel connected to something greater. Number 4, yeah, purpose again, gifts and talents. Definitely, am I on purpose? Such a big question. And I think just being challenged, like if you're bored and you're like underutilized, I think that's a huge factor as well. Making sure you're on strength. We're going to talk about this one because this was so hard for me. And some of you are listing a couple of them, maybe you're ready to find, Ashlyn's talking about the right kind of challenge. I think that's totally valid. It's like not every challenge is the same. So Anne, you're feeling good about number 5. You're doing that. Over challenge can be, sometimes we can be overdone or overcooked on some of these things too. And we'll talk about some of the stress that leads to. Dana, I want to read what you're saying here about your own gifts. I wasn't aware of before. Absolutely. So when we do get those opportunities to learn and grow and get pushed into other areas, then you can discover gifts you didn't even know you had. So I think I used to get bored every 3 years and change roles. I was always in the same company for 25 years, but I had so many different jobs because I would get bored. And so I love that idea of moving around a little bit so that you can actually, realize things you didn't even know. So thank you for adding that. It's always good to see what people are kind of missing and what they need. So I pulled this slide because I feel like we hit these places where we hit a fog, and it can come early, it can come later. It just depends what's going on and where you're at from a what job you're in and what the company is. But for me, I hit some really, really low points, and what I would end up doing and what I'm learning about myself in bigger ways than just career is that during my 20s and 30s, during my 20s, I was really, really impacted by what others thought. So I was influenced by what other people, what jobs they thought I should do, what they thought I was good at. You should look over here. You should do this job. You should do that. And I just kind of like, okay, I'll go do this. Okay, I'll go do this. And so I felt like other people were always deciding for me what was right, including the person that picked my forever career at age 18. It's like, I've just kind of, when you're in your 20s, I feel like I was just kind of like, okay, I didn't know any better. Like I didn't have the self-awareness that I'm standing here with today. I didn't have then. And so I think you do your best and you do what you can, but it's not always that satisfying, and engagement, you may not be that engaged in it. So, So for me, I actually wasn't able to answer the question until I was 42 years old about what I wanted to be when I grew up, growed up. I don't even know what I am. I think I'm already growed up, but yes, 42 years old is when I finally was able to answer that question. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I got there and how we ultimately arrived at being able to actually speak to that. So here, so go into the chat window and tell me what you think these people are feeling. So what do you think the feeling and the vibe is in these images? So they are so overwhelmed. They are so stressed. They have so many things coming at them. They're weary. There's only so much you can do, and there's so much work and so little time. And how many of you have actually can relate here and have felt this? I mean, have you felt this before? Have you felt this way? I assume that's not that profound of a question. I assume you have felt that way. So this was me. Like I was here, and so in 2008, I chose to take a new role working on the integration of Thomson and Reuters. So big, huge companies, two big, huge companies coming together, and I was determined to work on this integration. There were, I think, 40 work streams and 200 different programs and projects, and I was a project manager. I'm like, I can get in there and work on this. And so I stepped into this role. It was unknown. I loved my boss. Excuse me. I loved my boss's boss. I got to hire the team. So like I was surrounded by everybody I loved, but the work was killing me. I mean, killing me. And I kept trying and trying and trying. I'm like, one of these days this is going to click and I'm going to get it. Well, the scope of the project was so gigantic that I don't know if anybody actually could have gotten it. But in my mind, I wasn't getting it. I wasn't, maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe I wasn't good enough for this job. Maybe I actually wasn't qualified to be a director. I mean, you can imagine the thoughts that I was having. And it was the most self-destructive thinking that you could ever have. I'd get up every single day. I'd go into work and I'd try it again. Maybe today's the day it's going to click. Maybe today's the day it's going to work. Now, I have much more insight about what was happening in that moment. But what started to happen, I have more awareness now about what was happening to me during that year. But what happened is that because of the just self-destruction and the worry and the stress, is that my physical body actually started to get messed up in really weird ways. I got something, so I took this job on February 1st. By May, I had a disease called Fifth disease. I can't even say it. It is if you get this when you're like 2, you get a fever and some red cheeks and you stay home from daycare for a couple days. When you get it as an adult, it is like crippling. I was so sick. And I couldn't walk, like my joints and my elbows, my knees, that whole entire summer had trouble with my knees. Like I can remember standing next to our administrative lady's desk and thinking to myself, I might need to get like a handicap sticker for my freaking car. I mean, I was horrified, but I couldn't walk from my car to my desk. So the other thing that was happening is that we were under construction at home. And why wouldn't I be the project manager of our home basement remodel? I was a project manager. And so I was like the general contractor for an entire basement remodel. So I'm dealing with this illness. Our house is torn apart. I've got dust. There's dust. We're busting up concrete. We have this huge, gigantic project going on in the basement. And I'm managing contractors. I'm trying to get this job figured out. It was a disaster. And I hit a breaking point, as you can imagine. And in September, the project, the home construction was finished right after Labor Day. So my kids are back in school. I'm working from home. And for whatever reason, it was one of those days the kids didn't have school on a Friday. So brand new construction, I'm working at home, I'm doing all the things. I've got laundry going, the kids are at play dates, I'm working, and I'm in the space. I'm standing in the space right now. So I'm doing all these things, right? I'm being like superhuman. I'm multitasking. I couldn't be better at it, whatever. So I'm doing all the things, and I go over to the laundry area and I turn on the water, and I'm going to soak something in OxyClean. So I plug the sink, I turn on the water, and just as I'm doing all of that, I get a phone call that I need to go over and pick up Annika from across the neighborhood. And I live in just a small little neighborhood. I go get in my car, I go to get her, and it took me forever. There was like a car accident, there was construction, I had to go around. I mean, this like 10-minute errand, I swear it took me 30 minutes. It took forever. So I get back home, and I'm going to come right back in, and I'm going to do all the things again. I come down into the basement, I round the corner to get back to my laptop and back to work. And I realized that I left the water running the whole entire time I was gone. And let's remember for a moment, I plugged the sink. So the water came up out of the sink onto the laundry that was sitting on top of the countertop, off the counter, down into the carpet, onto my custom built cabinetry. Everything was wet. The carpet had literally, I don't even know if it had been in there for a couple of weeks. The pad is soaked, my carpet is soaked. Still caused me stress to replay the story. It sent me to my absolute knees, literally in every way possible. I was so overwhelmed, and so I don't even know how to describe the words. 2 months later, my appendix almost ruptured, and I was in the hospital getting my appendix out. And then at the end of that 2008, I sat down with my boss at my performance evaluation, and I didn't even know if I achieved. Like, I didn't even know if I hit the radar of just like regular performance. I didn't feel like I did anything. And I was so stressed about that review. So I go into that review, I'm sitting there, and she spends, the hour giving me such amazing feedback about all the things I did in that year, all the impact I made in leading the team. Could not have been a better review. So, as you can imagine, I stepped out of her office, and I'm quite sure that I probably went to my car and had a complete and total breakdown, because what happened is that I had beat myself up so badly that year, and I was so overdone and so stressed and so everything that I had convinced myself that I had no clue what I was doing, and I was not being successful, and I was not achieving, and yet my other people around me saw it completely different. So the only problem in that year was between my own two ears and a whole lacking of awareness. The problem with that year is that I was being asked to do a job that is actually opposite of my strengths. So my strengths are in strategy, vision, energy, passion, ideas. Like I'm an ideas person. I'm a big picture person. I was writing board papers. We were doing like the financial metrics and details and sending reports to the board every week. Like the detail factor over the top, the analysis that we were doing, we were in spreadsheets and Excel and PowerPoint details, all of this detailed reporting. Worst possible place for me to be. But I didn't know, I did not know that was the problem. I literally thought it was me, that something was wrong with me. And so that year absolutely changed my life. I mean, had that not happened to me, and you always hear about that, had that not happened to me, I wouldn't be standing here right now. And so sometimes those absolute hardest on your knees type moments are what actually propel you into where you need to be next. So when you think of warning signs, and just I was the volume of warning signs I was being given that year were, I mean, how many do you need, right? And I probably left some stuff out. So my body was trying to tell me that something was wrong, but I could not see it and I could not hear it, even though, it was screaming at me. So now that I've had that experience, what ended up happening to me is I went into a total deep dive. I spent 5 years studying, who am I? What am I doing in this world? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing for work? What do I want to be when I grown up? I was already grown up, but what am I going to do technology for the rest of my life? And the answer to that just made me sick. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to go and do the exact same thing that I've been doing for the first half of my career for the second half. And I was determined to figure out how to do that. And the reason that I'm here sharing this is because I don't want you to spend 5 years. Like, I'm going to start you out with the 3 or 4 things that are critical, but I can save you a lot of time, because I got into analysis paralysis about this whole process, and I just overdid it. So I want you to think about, so go into the chat window, what are some of the warning signs that you might be ignoring right now at work for you? Go to the chat window and tell me what your signs might be. Thank you, Marcy. Yeah, exhaustion, lack of energy, procrastination, absolutely. Anxiety, yep. Yep. Definitely not doing what you love. Anxiety, annoyance, yeah, your mood ends up changing. Sleep is definitely a factor. Dread. Yeah, having to have wine on tap just to survive your life, that's a whole nother webinar. But thank you, Anne, for your honesty. I think wine is one of the ways that we survive. So thank you for that. And just noticing, what are those signs that, what are they trying to tell you? Boredom, lack of motivation, absolutely. So those are all, you guys are getting the signs too. And the beautiful thing is we can actually do something about it. Take a read of this quote. So it says, change the changeable, accept the unchangeable, and remove yourself from the unacceptable. Tell me in the chat, what do you make of this quote? What do you make of this quote? So when you read this, what does it make you think about? So for Kelly, we have more control than we think. Focus on what you have control of. Thank you, Dana. Sheila's talking about better boundaries and stop lamenting over things that aren't changeable. Absolutely. I'm just reading what you say, Stacy. When you think of changeable, how do you put the financial impact into perspective? Great question. Difficult to make it happen, figuring out what is within your control, because you have influence over a lot of things, but it doesn't mean you can control. One of the biggest lessons I've taken away from some of the culture work we did is that, you only have control over yourself. You can influence a lot of people around you and a lot of things around you, but at the end of the day, you get to choose. You might be in a situation that is completely unacceptable, but I think what ends up happening is you can't see a way out. I know for me, like during that 5-year period, I couldn't see how I could ever make a change. I was raising a family, I had a reliable paycheck and benefits and all those things. And I think that ends up kind of shutting you down and really reducing possibility, because it's hard to see, how do you actually change from that. I think that's one of the hardest things, is figuring out the way out, and we'll talk about that. So here's what I want to share. Could somebody give me some feedback really quick on the Zoom? So can you guys see my chat window? Do I have to keep moving it, or can you see the slides? I'm not certain if the Zoom group chat is showing for you and if I have to move it. So I think you guys have control over moving your own boxes. Okay. I just wasn't sure if I had to keep moving you guys around. Okay, so here's where we're going to start. So we are going to talk about 4 things that were absolutely positively game changers for me when it came to exploring career. And it's these things that allowed me to actually change my career and tip it towards all the things that I value, all of my strengths, all of my inspiration. We were able to tip the scales. And so I want to take you through these so that you can think about how these are factors for you. So go into the chat window. I just had to do this at a conference last week. Actually, I was given like 5 minutes. It was a lot of time. I'm not giving you 5 minutes. I want you to go into the chat and I want you to tell me what you know to be some of your strengths. So you know what you're good at. Go to the chat window and tell me 2 or 3 things that either you know you're really good at or that you've had feedback on. What do you know your strengths to be? What are they? Kelly, you should have been in my job then, because I'm not great at Excel. You could have been in there for me. Great. It's fun to see these coming in. So organized, creative, innovative, connecting with others, helping others get results, leadership, relationships, planning, having minimal direction. Love that. People person, strategy through details. Awesome. Positivity, adaptability. It looks like the results of the Strengths Finder 2.0. Oh, more Excel. I should have had these people with me, these Excel people. Getting things done, checking things off the list. And Doug, if you or Christine, will you set yours to everyone so everybody can see your answer? Problem solver, love that. So you guys have thought about your strengths before, so this isn't going to be, the first time you've ever thought about this. But what I want to add to it is that these strengths, these are your superpowers. This is everything right here. So when you think of what you do well, and you think of the strengths that you have, and you've probably taken assessments, like I've taken every test. This was part of my 5-year analysis paralysis. I have taken every test that exists because I was waiting for one of these tests to tell me who I was supposed to be. And it makes me a little bit sad, but I was so searching and seeking, and like, one of these things, one of these assessments is bound to tell me who I am supposed to be and why I'm on this planet. Like, what is it? And I just was like starving for more information. But one of the key elements was figuring out, here's what I'm super good at. And here's the type of work that I want to be in that aligns to my strengths. So the strengths that you bring to the table are your superpower. So when you think of, I see this all the time when I'm doing workshops with teams, is that I've heard participants say that they have been asked to focus on their weaknesses, and they're trying to make their weaknesses better. That is not my advice. That would not be how I would advise. I think you need to take your strengths and make them towering strengths, as opposed to like, I'm never going to be good at Excel. I'm never going to want to open Excel, not any day of the week. In fact, if that program was off my computer and I never had to use it, I'd be totally good with that. So having the awareness to the strength allows you to make those even better. So for me, facilitation is a huge strength. I love it. It fills me up. It's super inspiring. And so I'm taking steps to get even better at it. So how do you learn to tell stories? How do I have better presence in front of the room? There's all these different things I can do to take something that is naturally a strength for me and making it a super strength, superpower. So I want you to get super clear about what are your strengths. And if you're not sure, one of the coolest things I did last year was I sent out a 4-question survey to pretty much everybody I knew. And they fed me back what my strengths were and kind of my brand. And they gave me a whole bunch of feedback. So don't hesitate to ask the people around you to help you determine what those strengths are. So getting clear about strengths, number 1 thing. So the second thing is being very clear about what your personal value system is telling you. So your values are a reflection of where you've been in your life to date. So you've had life experiences. You were raised in an environment that was a hotbed of values. You learned what was important from the family system that you were born into. You've had your own life experiences. You've had your own family. You've made decisions. So your values, whether you realize it or not, are this like it's like your guidance system. So I had never had even a thought about values before. And during my analysis paralysis time period, I figured this out. And one of the things that really helped me is I sat down with a coach, and he was in my office, and I only spent 1 hour with this guy. But what he helped me see is that the reason I was suffering so much in the role is that I have a value. One of my values is helping others. And I was spending all of my days writing board papers. So like desire, I want to help people. I want to feel significance is one of my traits. I want to feel like what I'm doing matters in this world, like I'm making an impact. I was writing papers, financial reporting. Like, do you see the disconnect in that? But I had no awareness to that, zero. And he asked me during that meeting, he's like, you might need to consider working for a company that actually has a bigger cause. Like I spent 25 years with a company that does legal research. Like, not super like, oh, the heart, you know? I'm sure they've done things that have made huge differences in the lives of human beings, but it wasn't tangible to me. I could never really feel that because I was too embedded in the organization. So he helped me see the importance of making sure that my values were aligned to my work. So my values today are family, love, integrity, connection, and freedom. So those are my driving force. I know exactly what they are. And when I need to make decisions, I'm always, always, always checking with my value system first. And this is the first place I start with any coaching client is we have to have your base. We have to have your foundation so that we know what are we working against? What are we, you know, what's important to you, what matters, and making sure that we're making decisions aligned to that. So values, super, super important as a part of really getting to know yourself. Okay, so the next one is inspires and drains. So when you think of, you have activities, you have situations, you have people, you have work that you're doing every day. Some of it totally inspires you and some of it totally drains you. Go into the chat window and tell me a piece of work or a person or a situation that totally inspires you. So put that in the chat. Meeting new people and connecting. So connection, probably one of your values, Stacy. Connecting with others, experiences, helping others. So Amy, your boss is inspiring to you. That's awesome. You're very lucky for that. What else? Connecting with others through experiences, professional and personal, absolutely. Untangling a problem, finding a solution, sure. So Kyle got inspired to be here because his supervisor was inspired. That's good. Connecting with others, people of high integrity, being creative, bringing out that artistic side. Awesome. So what I want you to do, or what I want you to think about, or one of the things I'm going to task you with when we leave here is keeping track. So I want you to keep track of these things that inspire you and then the things that drain you. So go into the chat, tell me something that's totally draining, like drains your energy, pulls you down, you don't like it. What is some of the draining? So Amy, totally relevant to have the 40-hour work week can be a total drain, lots of stress, lots of, just It's a lot of time away from home, away from the kids. So Scott, you get frustrated when things don't happen fast enough. Oh, the mindless meeting, Christine, seriously. Mindless meetings really hard. Not being heard, absolutely. Not being able to feel like you can speak up. All of this stuff, so draining. These are coming in a lot faster than the inspiring list. No action, lack of accountability. I mean, now I'm feeling you guys. Feeling inadequate, Lori, which is what I felt like. Not being open to new ideas. Hold on, so many, manual processes. Oh my. Yeah, Kelly, I feel you. Bureaucracy, not enough time. Yes, we could go on all day, right? So you guys get it. There's stuff that is happening in your work world that is totally draining you. So here's my challenge to you is that I want you to start noticing it. So if you are spending, I don't know what majority, I don't know what number to make up, but if the majority of the time you're spending in any given day is in your draining column, you need to make a change. My aspiration dream for anybody I coach with, anybody I work with is I want you to spend 80% of your time in the column that's inspiring. I mean, you're going to spend 30% of your entire life at work. Why would you want to be in that draining column every day? I just feel like we got to start noticing it so that we can do something about it, because that's what's impacting engagement. It's impacting culture, all the things. So that's your task, is to come out of here with thinking about what are the things that lift my energy. These are people, these are tasks, these are places, anything, projects at work, you name it, this list is long. And then there's the things that drain you. So for me, getting into Excel, working on financials, managing all the details, making sure I have all the details taken care of, that is really hard for me and really draining. I'm also really sensitive to people. So when I can sense and feel people the instant I'm in their same space, and that can have an immediate impact on me if they're complaining, if they're drama, toxic, just I can feel it instantly. And so I'm really sensitive to the people that I expose myself to because it's so draining for me. So just noticing these two things, what ends up happening is in that lifts my energy category on the left side, this is like your career roadmap. What are all the things that you listed on the left side? Like that is where you want 80% of your entire day to be spent, on the left side of that list. And so the longer, and if you can think back, like go back to previous jobs, things you loved, even when you're at home, it doesn't have to be just work stuff. Like, where does your mind go when it wanders? Like, what are you dreaming about? What do you want? What's your vision? I mean, all those things that are really exciting to you and really uplifting, get them down on paper so that you can actually step back from those things and look at them and make some decisions and start to really think about what you're going to do with that. So here's a few, so those are my absolute top 4 ways that these 4 things actually have had the biggest impact on my own career transformation and just still relevant. Like I'm definitely in an 80-20 situation. I do very few things that actually drain me now, because I know exactly what these first 3 columns, I know what's important to me there. And so I build my days, all my people, everything I'm doing, my tasks, my work, the offers that I'm making to the world in the leadership development and teamwork space, like it's 100% everything I love to do. And if I can't show up and I'm out selling my services, if I can't authentically show up and be these things, then I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm over it. I'm done trying to be somebody I'm not. And if it doesn't work for the company or the client or whoever, I'm good with it. Like, it's okay. Like, there's plenty of people that need you, that need me. There's plenty of opportunities and options, but we get so locked in to what we can see, and it's just that just kind of it keeps us, it holds us back. It keeps us from actually moving forward. So that's where I want you to start. Here is what I consider to be kind of the money slide right here relative to these things. So if you are feeling stressed at the beginning, we were talking about feeling overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, not enough time, just things are flaring. Here's where I want you to check in. So these are critical red flag moments that are telling you you need to check in. Something is out of alignment. Anytime someone comes to me and they're freaking out about something or something's going wild at work, this is where we start. Check with your value system. Are any of your values being compromised? I've been in jobs, so integrity, one of my number one values. I have been in roles where I was forced to lie to my business partner about the financials on a project. And all I cared about was that relationship with the business partner. But my management over here was saying, you cannot share that information. Tell her we don't have the information yet. And like inside of me, I was just like, this doesn't work for me. Like integrity and relationship and connection is everything. And now I'm being asked by this leader of our CTO that I have to like be dishonest. Like this is out of alignment. This doesn't work for me. And that's why I was so uncomfortable. So you feel uncomfortable when your value system is off and when your strengths are off. So check in with your strengths. How much of your time are you trying to spend being somebody that you're not? You're playing. You're trying to be. I spent a whole year, probably heck of a lot longer than that, trying to be something else, someone else, because it's who I thought I had to be. It's who I thought I needed to be to get that job or this job or to, whatever, fill in the blank. Are you playing to your strengths, or are you trying to force yourself into those areas that you actually are super drained by? Check your energy. So what is draining you? So back to our list of just, look at your day. How much of your day are you just hating it? And what are you loving? So it's you making, those decisions about here's what I get to control. And if these things are out of whack and off and you don't even, that's where that kind of that serenity slide comes in about, figuring out here's what I can control. And this is actually unacceptable to me and my life, and I need to make a change. So I know change is hard and I don't want to underestimate it, but if you just stay the same, you're going to suffer from that. So here are some resources that, and I had so many, like I said, if it's out there, I've done it. But I really spent some time thinking about if somebody was going to start the process, I could have sent you 20 things, but I actually don't think that would be useful. The Power of Purpose by Richard Leiter. He's a local author. Without question, it's just a little $15 little thin book. The amount of questions in that book that allowed me to identify like more of that, like inspiring, here's where I want to go, here's the purpose of my life. That sounds really deep, I realize. But those questions in that book really, really, really were a beautiful starting point for me. And I just love that book. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to get really clear on what your personal values are. So I have this Mind Tools. If you just put into Google Mind Tools and personal values, you'll find this tool. It's just a list of personal values, and it gives you a little bit of background information on the whole thing. Go through that exercise of figuring out what are your top 5. I was forced to come up with top 3 the other day. That's hard. I will grant you 5. I think it takes 5 to really take in the whole picture of family and some of the other things besides work. StrengthsFinder 2.0. This is an assessment that you can take online. And what I love about this one is that it gives you a full report of here's what my strengths are, but then it tells you here's some things to how you can make this strength even better. It gives you ideas for how do you take your strengths and really build on them. A huge tool for me back in my corporate days, huge coaching tool for me. I wouldn't actually sit down with somebody in a mentoring or coaching situation without their reports. So I have put a lot of value in that, in really understanding what kind of strengths that they brought to the table to make sure that we are focused in the right place. This log. So we talked about creating a log. So in your journal, creating a log of inspiring versus draining. Just keep a list. Just set it up. put it to the side of your desk, and just every now and again check in. What am I doing right now, and do I love this, or is it really draining for me? And keep that log for as long as you need to until you have a nice list of it's a story, and it's trying to tell you something. So really noticing that. And then just noticing too, in that draining column, a lot of times your body is trying to tell you things. So when you're sitting in a meeting and something happens and all of a sudden you feel your stomach and your everything kind of turn on its side, that's a red flag. That there's something there that your body wants you to notice and pay attention to. So if you have this list there, just keep the log, and that will help you really start thinking about, what am I doing? What do I have going on right now? So I'm going to pause. I've been talking like mad. Any questions? So I've got a couple. I want to dive into one more thing before, and I don't know if I'll be able to, I don't know how many questions there will be. There weren't that many last Friday. If I don't get to them, I can take your questions through email too, and happy to respond. And plus this dog is so cute. Little pause, get it? We're going to pause for questions. I thought that was pretty clever. Pause for questions with this cute dog. So let me know if you have any questions, but what I want to stress more than anything in this whole process is that nothing changed for me. The reason I got out of the 5-year rut is because one thing and one thing only changed. I had a whole bunch of data about who I am, and I have every test result under the sun. And I'm still tempted every time I see one of those little tests, but I've stopped. I know I've got what I need now. Nothing changed until I started to take action. If you get all of this information, we start doing the work, and I hope that we can do some of this work together. Nothing is going to, everything changed for me the second I just took a small action. I started going out and talking to people about what I was super inspired by, and started having them build on my ideas. So I had ideas, and so I started going out and actually meeting with people and having them contribute to my ideas. Like, how would I do this? How do I, I'm in this environment. How could I wanted to gather people and create connection and create connected conversations, which is now part of my business today, which is fascinating. But it's like, you have to begin where you are. Nobody's going to call you and nobody's going to do this for you. You have to start acting just in small ways. Start acting on your strengths. Go find some place where you can pitch your strengths into. Go find something you can do in that column of inspiration. Nothing matters until you actually do something. If you're just sitting around waiting, you're going to be sitting around waiting. So action was the game changer, complete 100%. You have to act in order to get there. And this is my friend and ideal client, Jen, and I've been watching her journey. We've been coaching for about 6 months, in the experience that she's been having as a result of using all these tools. It's just been amazing to watch. She's a sales leader and just got a brand new house with her 2 little boys. I mean, she is killing the dream thing. And so I had to show Jen and her awesomeness. So it's been a great journey with her. I love this quote. It says, "Happiness always sneaks in a door you did not know was open." So that's how I feel about the work over the next 6 weeks. It's like, let's just go find some doors we didn't have yet. And you guys, all these 30 people that'll be on these calls and in the environment, you guys know more than I do. You can share, we can learn from each other. So it's not about everything that I've learned, because you have had your own journeys and you've had your own experiences. So let's get them out. Let's start talking about them so that we can help each other and really support each other in this journey together. I think it's better.